Milstein's army is coming to Vancouver. And hey, that's okay. Because as Jason Botchford once said, we need an army. RIP Botch, we love you. And we love you, the listener, as well. It's Beggsy, and that's Bhawan, and you're listening to Locked On Canucks.
You're Locked On Canucks, your daily podcast on the Vancouver Canucks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, and thanks for hitting the play button on today's episode of Locked On Canucks. My name is Trevor Beggs, Canucks writer and part-time credentialed media member for Daily Hive Vancouver. And before we want to dive in the show, we want to thank you for listening to Locked On Canucks, your team every day.
Every day.
Every day, buddy. Subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. On today's show, we're going to get into two Dan Milstein clients who could potentially be joining the Vancouver Canucks. Are they good fits? We also want to dive into what defines success. One thing I know that defines success is doing a podcast with Kyle Bhawan.
Hey.
What's going on, buddy?
Not much. Just chilling, about to talk some Canucks. We'll get to the comments at the end of the show because we saved the best for last. And yeah, the people who comment on the show, like the show, subscribe to the show, they're the best people in the world. There's a chance that I enjoy them more than I do enjoy my family and my dogs and my friends. Yo, Beggsy, why do you look like you're about to go to court to settle on a number in regards to a recent divorce? For real, dude. You look like you're going through something right now. Are you and your girl still together or what?
Yeah, honestly, it's I'm at that other office today at my day job. I have a main office and I have that other office, so I just got to book out whatever meeting room's available. And I know I'm wearing a gray suit. I got a gray blank wall behind me. It's very gray, man. It's very gray,
dude.
which isn't really the mood for this episode because A, it's sunny outside, and B, we're talking about how we're going to make this team better next season, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And Kyle, maybe I want to ask you off the hop before we get into those two Dan Milstein clients who were in rumors last week. If you're going to make a priority in the offseason between a top four defenseman and a third line center, what should the priority be for the Vancouver Canucks?
Dude, it's easy, bro. Top four defenseman, man. Let's go, dude. Let's not be crazy here. I understand the importance of a third line center and that depth down the middle, especially in a season where, again, it matters. Next season matters. Embrace that, Vancouver Canucks fans. Next season matters. But come on. This team has ignored the back end for so long, so many years, year after year after year. If they have a chance to do something back there and get another top four guy, they got to do it. And I think you're bringing this up because that Dan, how do you say his last name? Milstein? Am I saying that right?
Dan Milstein, yeah. Dan Milstein, you got it, buddy.
I feel as if he has a candidate on defense and a candidate down the middle. So I'm going to ask that question back to you. What do you think they should do?
Yeah, I mean, I hate agreeing with you, but I do agree with you. And, part of the reason I do agree, I think both positions are important, to be honest with you. I don't think the Canucks, they can't trot out the same defense. We all know that. But again, I think trotting out Sheldon Dries or Nils Amon as your third line center next year is also not really a recipe for success. So I actually think both spots are pretty important. But the reason I lean towards prioritizing a top four defenseman is because honestly, they cost more money and they're harder to find. And one of the guys we're talking about, Vladislav Gavrikov, and again, the reason we're talking about this, Rick Dhaliwal of Czech TV last week, and he's mentioned this a couple times, but came up again last week. Two Dan Milstein clients, defenseman Vladislav Gavrikov and forward Ivan Barbashev. One is Gavrikov again, top four defenseman, Barbashev, third line center. Both are Milstein clients, and apparently the Canucks have asked Milstein about both players. Again, they're currently playing on playoff teams.
Are they allowed to do that?
It's a great question. Dhaliwal's just got the scoops, okay? I don't know what's allowed and what's not.
Rick Dhaliwal has to be one of the most NHL, and he happens to come out of the city of Vancouver, wherever he lives. I'm so sick and tired of that narrative. I think I just only hear it in this industry, like the entertainment industry, where it's like, oh, nobody's made it out of Vancouver. Dude, Rick Dhaliwal's that guy across the NHL, okay?
Yeah, 100%. He's got some scoops, and again, he's really dialed in with the agents specifically. So, he's going to Milstein, and it's interesting to hear that the Canucks have shown interest in both, and I'm not surprised. I mean, those are the two most glaring needs on the roster. I mean, Gavrikov is probably going to be the top left shot defenseman available in the market in unrestricted free agency.
Man.
went through it a couple weeks ago. I don't have the list in front of me, but I'm just going to say this. It's a shallow pool. There are not a lot of options up there to upgrade your defense and find legitimate top 4 defensemen in free agency. And a guy like Gavrikov too, again, he's put up some points, he's put up some numbers, but the defensive side of the puck is where he really shines. And I've watched him a couple times this season, but especially in that last game where the Canucks played LA, and I think we got outshot again 37-6 after 2 periods, something stupid like that. Gavrikov really stood out to me in terms of just being incredibly physical and solid along the boards, making smart plays to get the puck out of the zone. But again, is he going to be worth $5 to $6 million a season? Because that's probably what he's getting on the open market. And again, this is a team that just acquired Filip Hronek. They have Quinn Hughes on their defense. Ethan Bear's up for a new contract. And then, oh, by the way, you're paying Ekman Larsson and Myers a combined $13.26 million. So it's a priority, but are the Canucks going to be able to swing it, signing a guy like Gavrikov or acquire another top 4 defenseman at a cap of $5-6 million a season?
I don't know. It's going to be tough, especially for the most expensive team in hockey, which is your Vancouver Canucks, and that's going into next season. They're already capped out. It's going to be tough. But can they do it? Of course they can. Of course they can, because I do believe that Aquilini is going all in again, and it's going to cost him a lot of money to a player that he's not going to use. And I think it's maybe a little simpler to do the whole Myers thing, but come on, they're going to get off of him in 1 year. I think they can bite that. Oliver Ekman Larsson is no longer a Vancouver Canucks. Let's get used to that. It's the truth. They got to make a move. And they got to replace him and replace that money right away. That's what they're going to do with another guy that can play defense. Now, I am worried, though, because the way you're hyping this dude up, in typical Canucks fashion, are we going to give this guy a 6-year deal worth $7 million per year? What's going to happen here? This is real dangerous territory. Beggsy, I know you don't have the research in front of you, but we really have to dive into some of the bargain deals they can sign to get this done.
And honestly, the reason why, again, I was kind of prioritizing a top 4 defenseman like Gavrikov is because I think it's easier to find those. Well, it is easier to find those bottom 6 forwards, especially. Well, I was going to say especially centers. That's not true, but it's easier to find a bottom 6 forward than it is a top 4 defenseman.
Mm-hmm.
And so it kind of leads us into the other guy in the rumors, which is Ivan Barbashev. So Barbashev right now, he's not even a 3rd-line center. He's a top 6 winger for the Vegas Golden Knights.
Oh man,
we're clearly missing Mark Stone at the moment, but Barbashev has 4 goals, 10 points in 14 games for the Golden Knights, playing almost 18 minutes a night. But he's only taken 9 faceoffs over those 14 games. So he is a top 6 winger for the Vegas Golden Knights. He's a player that certainly has value, but he kind of screams to me as that classic guy who gets overpaid on the free agent market.
Oh, yeah, dude.
Dude. Gavrikov, again, it might be worth the money because I just don't think there are a lot of 27-year-old, there are not a lot of 27-year-old unrestricted free agent defensemen who can skate and are incredibly solid defensively. Guys like Barbashev, they're easy to find.
For real. That's something that seems like it could happen especially if the Canucks do move off of some salary. I think they can replace OEL with the defenseman, but maybe that type of player is somebody that you bring in after you get rid of a Connor Garland or a Brock Besser to fit a need 100%. Down the middle. And man, I heard this on Sportsnet 650 yesterday. I think Bick said it, and I think it's true. Every offseason is the most important offseason in franchise history. But man, oh man, this offseason is really the most important time in this what, 50? How long has this team been around? 54 years, 55 years in the history of the Vancouver Canucks? Because next season matters so much. I'm going to bring it up too, okay? They're going to make all these effing moves, all these moves. And before they do so, part of me wants them to prioritize actually signing Pettersson first. Because if they make these moves without signing Pettersson and they're like, you know what, he's still an RFA at the end of next season, we'll make it work, we have a lot of time. Dude, that's putting a lot of pressure, even more pressure on the success for next season. Because if they don't have that guy locked up and next season kind of blows up in their face, which is, Vancouver Canucks hockey right there. We might lose Pettersson for who? Barbashev? For, you know what I'm saying? For Gavrikov or another guy. I can't, saying this out loud, actually, I'm happy because now we can put it out in the universe. Before you sign anyone, sign Pettersson. The truth.
Yeah, he's priority number 1, 2, and 3 this offseason, get him locked up. And maybe there's a debate to be had about him too. Like, I don't know. No, you should lock him
What
up this
debate?
summer.
What do you mean? What are you talking about? That's priority number one. You just do
Here's
it.
the thing. It's hedging your bets. I think we all in this market think Pettersson is going to be the greatest thing since sliced bread moving forward.
He already is.
Again, we talked yesterday about how he's potentially a Hart candidate this season.
You did. I didn't say that. You did.
I did. But it's a fair conversation, man. It's a fair conversation. Is he going to be that good next season?
Oh my!
That. Does he have an even better year next year?
Dude. Get the break. This guy's putting this out there, man.
I'm just saying.
Come on, just because you're going through it, Mr. Gray, just because you're going through it today, and you got a huge court hearing in a couple minutes. Come on, bro. Don't put that out there, bro.
This is the court of Pettersson right now,
dude. Pettersson is going to get better. It's pretty obvious. This guy's wired differently. His off-season regimen is changed. I think he's going to do the same, and I think the guy wants to win. I don't think he's glued in. I don't think he's scoping Twitter, scoping social media, watching TSN Sportsnet, listening to the radio all day. But I feel as if he's heard the noise. Congratulations, Pettersson. You're on a 12-game point streak. Your team is winning games in March and February. Who cares? I think here's the noise. If you really want to be one of the best players in the league, do it when the pressure's on. Do it in October and November. Because we've seen this song and dance before. We saw it last year. And now I know he's capable of doing it from the start. And we kind of saw that this year too. He's been good all season, but get the wins. Make sure these things matter. And remember, whatever he's doing this season, it will actually only be remembered if next season's good and the year after that when they actually turn the page. But for now, there's a real good chance that this could be a forgotten season. For real.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, in terms of Pettersson's contract, I think he has earned the right to have an extension this offseason.
And I think
he's done for this team. And again, if they want him here long term, they got to put their best foot forward. Yeah. Not have this drag out into the end of next season. So I'm just being realistic, Beggsy. You might not like it. I'm just saying. He's had a really good season. Might be hard to beat. He's going to be good next season, but it might be hard to beat this good. Just saying.
You deserve to go to hell, dude. Cut the break, dude.
All right. So, again, a team like the Canucks, they've struggled over the past 10 years. But, Kyle, I wanted to have a bit of an interesting debate with you. And we'll get about that after the break. It has to do with success. But before we do that, I need to tell you that the midway point of the NBA season is here. And now is the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from the money line to point scores and threes drained. Whether you want to bet on my Portland Trailblazers, whether you want to bet on the Golden State Warriors, or whether you want to bet on LeBron James. FanDuel lets you do that by combining your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with same-game parlays. So don't miss the chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA.
One love, best of luck, win some money, use FanDuel responsibly, sending blessings your way. You're back on Locked On Canucks. Kyle Bhawan, Trevor Beggs, going through it right now, as you can tell. Gray background, gray suit. He's not telling me something, and it's okay because it's personal, family, hide that stuff, right? Keep it in the background. It is what it is. I'm wishing you the best in life. You want to talk about success in sports and the question if championships are the only things that matter. And I can't believe this is a debate because, championships are the only thing that matter. Real talk, Trevor.
Yeah, so I'm going to push back on this a bit, and let me first give a shout out to where I heard this question or heard this conversation. So I'm a big fan of the Around the NFL podcast. They've been doing it for a long time. Kyle, I hope you and I are doing this for a decade, they've been doing it over at Around the NFL. You're stuck with
me for 7 more decades, man.
That's all right with me, buddy.
Yeah, we're doing this till we're 100. With me. Yeah.
But really, they had a listener ask the question: are championships the only thing that matter? And really, my gut was to lean with you, Kyle, but at the end of the day, it's sports, okay? Sports is supposed to be fun. If all you do is stress about your team winning a championship and that's all that consumes you, sports is not going to become enjoyable. And I think we've seen even this season, some fans online talking about checking out. we're seeing that, the Canucks had a sellout streak for like 10 years plus through the West Coast Express and the City years. Now, the games aren't selling out anymore. They're getting close. They're certainly close to capacity, but they're not selling out anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the point I want to make in that the other hosts around the NFL, some of them made it was definitely a debate. But I think championships shouldn't be the only thing that matters, because realistically, your team's going to win a championship once every 32 years if you're an average team. Obviously, the Canucks are a below average team because they haven't won a championship in 50 plus years. So all I'm saying is the definition of success shouldn't necessarily be tied to championships, because winning a championship is really, really, really hard to do, especially in hockey.
Yeah.
I still think it's the hardest trophy to win in sports. So yeah, I think if you're a fan and you want to enjoy hockey, you want to enjoy the Vancouver Canucks, you want to enjoy Lockdown Canucks, you got to enjoy a bit more of the day-to-day, the ups and downs of a season, the ups and downs of the playoffs. You got to enjoy a bit more individual.
Oh my God, dude. You are such an optimistic person, bro. This is what happens when you have children, right? It's all good. It's all about.
Wow, you just started this episode talking about how gray and pessimistic I am. Which one am I? Which one am I?
If you have the chance to wake up in the morning and smell the roses and smell the fresh air, you already won in life. Who cares if your sports team is a championship contending team? Who cares, right? Who cares, man? You don't want to be miserable. Don't worry about championships. Worry about if you're having fun, right? If you're having fun or not. And even if you're not having fun, at least your team tried their hardest, right? Tried their hardest. They don't owe you anything. They don't owe you anything, right? They're doing it for themselves. They got their own intentions. Who cares, right? Trevor, relax, buddy. Championships matter. And this is the attitude, Trevor. You can't be putting this stuff out there. 10 minutes ago, you talked about how, is Pettersson going to have as good as a season as he had this year? Now you're talking about, championships don't matter. Bro, don't bring that BS to Vancouver, okay? For real, championships matter. They only matter.
Of course they matter. Now, yeah, they're the only thing that matters.
Dude, we're in a competitive, I'm not playing the sport, but we're in a competitive environment. For real. We're trying to be the best, right? Come on, bro. We grew up in the era, right? Pokemon. I want to be the very best that no one ever was. And then the Gatorade commercial, right? What was that commercial? Anything you can do, I can do better. Anything you can do. Bro, these things matter. Now, I will say, there's levels to it, right? There's levels to it. And before you can compete for a championship, you need to be able to compete. And that's the first thing that really matters. Being competitive year after year after year after year. It matters because that allows you to get into the dance and actually compete for a championship stages. And if you look at some of the past Stanley Cup champions, I'll look at I'll look at St. Louis and Washington over the last, 6-7 years. They won Stanley Cups. Look at those teams, bro. Year after year after year, they made the playoffs. I think St. Louis made the playoffs maybe there was a stretch there, I think, when we were growing up, where St. Louis made the playoffs for 30 years straight or something crazy. Look at Washington. They were always in. You got to get to that level before you can get to the dance and really, really win a championship. So I will say that the goal is to win the championship. But again, the first goal has to be, you got to be competitive, because that's when it's really fun.
Yeah. And I think that's the point I wanted to make. And again, in terms of the Vancouver Canucks as well, is that, again, there's this big podcast and big expose on the West Coast Express era, who did, next to nothing in the playoffs aside from winning one round.
Oof.
But that line is incredibly celebrated for the success they brought to this market. They put butts back in seats in the city.
Yeah.
The Sedins as well. I mean, that was magical what they brought to the city. If you're a fan of hockey, if you're a fan of the Canucks, you were proud that the Sedin twins were one of your own.
Mm-hmm.
Those guys, those moments should still be celebrated, even if there wasn't a championship. Yeah, of course, we all want a championship. I'm just saying, it's not the only thing that matters. You got to smell the roses along the way and enjoy the journey a little bit.
Yeah, you do. And that's just a good life lesson as well. I think you should always have goals and reach for the stars. But again, if you're doing your best and competitive, you should be able to, enjoy the moment for a bit. But again, you brought up the West Coast Express and you brought up Henrik and Daniel. Maybe this is too harsh of a thing to say, but I'll say it. Bro, in 100 years, let's say the Canucks win 2 or 3 cups in 100 years. Let's say whatever, right? Let's say that happens. Maybe we'll use the example 50 years. Maybe in the next 50 years, the Canucks win 2 cups, right? I'm not going to say the Sedin twins or the West Coast Express is going to be forgotten, but they may be forgotten because a new standard will be brought into town and those things will matter less. The bar is pretty damn low in Vancouver. It really is. Now, the West Coast Express, super exciting. We were so close to the action, but really, really only a top line for what? A year and a half? A season and a half? Let's be real. It's the truth.
Yeah, they had I'd say they had 2 really, really good seasons, right?
And then
maybe 3.
And then Henrik and Daniel, they had one good run in the playoffs. They won a couple awards, which does add to the legacy. They actually won real awards. Real awards. They'll be remembered for a longer time, and they're in the Hall of Fame. And the story is incredible. Maybe their legacy will last. Well, they will, last a lot longer, especially if the Canucks somehow do win some cups and it gets kind of clogged up when we're talking about the history of the Vancouver Canucks. The Sedins will always have a legacy, but again, the chances are high that when that does happen, things will be forgotten that were, great, but not historic.
Yeah. Well, I hope that's the case. If the Sedins being quote unquote forgotten, and again we say that with in quotations, the Sedins will never truly be forgotten. But if they become forgotten because the Canucks are winning championships, hey, let's just hope that that's the case, buddy. Maybe let us know in the comments what defines your fandom. Are championships the only thing that matters, or do you stop and smell those roses along the way? Do you enjoy some of the little moments as well? I'm going to guess if you're listening to Locked On Canucks, your team every day, a daily podcast about the Canucks, that you probably care about some of the little things as well.
Yeah.
And our last segment, again, Kyle, you say it, man. We're saving the best for last. Why are we doing that?
Because it's all about the people. We're not here without you. Speaking of which, hit the like button so we can cover Trevor's legal fees because he's really going through it. He's going through it, and we need that support. And the like goes a long way. Hit the subscribe button and always comment. Comment if you're watching this and you want to chime in. Love us or hate us. React to our questions. It doesn't matter. Go Canucks go. And after this break, we will be talking about those comments. You're listening to Locked On Canucks. You're watching Locked On Canucks here on YouTube. Again, subscribe, like, Trevor Beggs, Kyle Bhawan. Let's go to the comments, right? Let's go to the comments. First off, we have this guy, right? Stefan Johansson. Great episode, guys. But Trevor, you got to stop hating Erik Karlsson. Cheers and lots of greetings from Sweden. I did respond to him. I said, sometimes Trevor is from Sweden and sometimes he's from Finland. For real. It's just the truth. Trevor's a hater. Real talk. And then we had this guy talk. I don't know how to pronounce the name, but he was really talking about how down the stretch here, he doesn't care about these games. It's really just him focusing on Pettersson picking up points, which is fun stuff. If you're a fan of the team, that may be the only attracting thing going down the stretch here for your team. And I really hope that Pettersson does pick up a lot more points here and just make it fun for the people who are watching. And he deserves it, man. Pad the stats. The guy's, he's only been here for a short time. But again, I do appreciate the effort. I appreciate how he puts his body on the line. He picks up the points. He's the hardest working team player on the team. All the best to Pettersson, man. He's the real deal.
Yeah, I'll touch on the first comment first from Stefan. Yeah, I was probably a little mean to Erik Karlsson in that episode. But I will say, so when I was covering my final game of the season in the booth, it was that 7-2 thumping of the Sharks. I was talking to one of the reporters about how I'm just not a fan of Erik Karlsson's defensive game. And the stats back it up. He's not, even at the rate he's scoring at, he's not outscoring his problems. And then so there was one play where he was on the power play, and it was when Sheldon Dry scored a shorthanded goal with less than a minute left in regulation. And Erik Karlsson just pretty much let Sheldon Dries walk him. And he went backhand upstairs on Reimer. And the point the reporter made beside me was that, maybe he was just leaving Reimer out to dry, which is fair. So I was like, oh, maybe Karlsson's just doing it to get back at James Reimer. Yeah. Doesn't really explain the other 65 plus games of the season before then, but maybe it explained it in that instance.
Yeah. And I can't believe you actually think that he's not going to win the Norris, even if he does put up 100 points. That's just something that's going to change the game. We appreciate the comments down below. Comment corner, always at the end of the show. Hit the like button, hit subscribe, and just support Trevor, man. We're trying to put bacon on his table and again support him through this struggle, man. I really hope you're gonna get through whatever you're going through here, man.
Yeah, for you listening on audio only, Kyle's just ragging on me because I'm wearing a gray suit. I mean, come on, buddy, come on.
Gray suit, gray background.
This is my wedding suit. This is literally my wedding suit.
You look like you're in what's it called? Not detention, but you know what I'm saying? Like you're about to get interviewed for something that you did, and it's It's tough, man. It's tough. I know sometimes it gets tough out there, and I know as men, we tend to, I know it's changing, but we tend to hide things, right? We don't want to express our feelings. We want to just handle it on our own. But I just want you to know, Beggsy, that I got you, man. So if you ever need to talk, you know my number, 778 beep, 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 beep.
I'm glad you got me, and you listening out there, we got you on Locked On Canucks, your team every day. And we want to thank you again for listening to this episode of Locked On Canucks. Now make your second listen game to game, Locked On NHL. Every moment, every performance, every result. Locked On Game to Game covers every game from across Locked On NHL with local analysis that only Locked On can deliver. Follow Game to Game on Locked On NHL, available on YouTube and wherever you get podcasts. I'm Trevor Beggs. He's Kyle Bhawan, and we thank you for listening to this episode of Locked On Canucks.
Peace, peace, peace. If you're from the West Coast, go for a walk today, smell the air, and live your best life. Locked On Canucks. Peace.
You're Locked On Canucks, your daily podcast on the Vancouver Canucks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.